well, it's an ongoing process, and the painting, if I start with the paintings where I am now, these paintings that I'm doing at the moment, there are two large ones on the go, and I always have two on the go, and they will both be a response to the previous paintings that I've been working on. So the certain subjects that are in them they've kind of had a whole long history, right back to when I started doing still life painting. And the very beginning was a need to want to learn how to really look, really observe, really know how to respond to what was in front of me. And so I began with what was around in the house, and it was a plate, it was a jug, an enamel jug, which appear often. And so those were the beginning, and in a way what I'm doing now leads right back to then. So those first paintings I will have learned something from what I did then. I will have thought about how to do that differently. I would have been led by, the light's changed, I want to explore that kind of light, so that'll take me to the next painting. And then that whole kind of evolution has gone on to what I'm doing now. I don't use artificial light. I did try once because I thought it would be so much easier. There's no relationship, that's what I found. There's just this constantness about it. I think that when I'm in here, part of what is going on between me and the way I'm setting up the compositions and the way I'm working with the light is me kind of processing or experiencing me in relation to my life and how I exist in relation to the people around me, and part of that, one of those relationships is with light, and so the light changes, the light, and sometimes it's a really difficult relationship. So I might set something up and have got to that position. I'm always kind of having to set it up and get to a position where it feels, okay, I'm here now. And then I can begin painting it. So it's like you're moving things around really subtly. Sometimes it's just tiny, tiny little shifts. And maybe because my background was in sculpture, I'm also looking in the round. I'm always looking at how they relate to each other from the side and from the back, even though I'm not using that in the painting. But another one of the relationships is with the light source and how the light is. And then I might come in the next day and the light's completely changed. That can come into the painting. So some of the paintings, the bigger ones particularly, they're more like an experience of a period of time. So it's time, light changing, me sitting and thinking as the light changes, because I might have to spend a few days just wondering about what's happening here, where is that shadow going now as opposed to where it was. What are the colours in that shadow now as opposed to when I set it up, and can I work with that? And so it's like another element in me relating to the painting process. And if I was to use artificial light, that element wouldn't be there, and I wouldn't have that engagement. And it's quite intense, and it makes it quite, it's very challenging, but it's also very alive. It makes it very alive. And so I prefer it, even though it's harder. What colours do I particularly get drawn to? It does vary, it changes. And it may be dependent on the time of year, because each time, the different summer and winter particularly have very different, because I work by natural light, and they have very different colours in them, and that will pull me towards particular objects. So particularly at the moment, I've recently got hold of some Indian yellow, and that was actually from seeing an exhibition of work by Howard Hodgkin, and he had this phenomenal yellow in his painting, and it's kind of, I see it a bit in some of the edges of some of the ceramics that I'm painting, has these little gold edges, and that's that colour. And so it'll then I then have got that, and some of the paintings begin with just a wash of one colour. So there might be just a wash of, at the moment, Indian yellow. It's quite a big thing. And then everything is in relation to that and builds up on that. So it gets to a point where you would not have any idea that there's that colour underneath it. It's a hard thing to describe a flower as having an ease. Simplicity is easier, but I also know that I paint roses, which are quite, they're not simple, they're quite involved. And so although I paint white cosmos a lot, they come into a lot, and the first pull towards that was the way they would flow and move in the wind. And so there you've got these very delicate white flowers sitting on this kind of mist of the leaves, which have this, yeah, kind of misty, and it's something quite evocative and quite poetic, perhaps. And then from there, because I didn't set out to paint flowers, it was like, oh, actually, I like that, and how can I work with that? From there, I began to look at other flowers, and often white is what I like. I like white against the green, perhaps, of the leaves. And so it's not really like what do I look for, it's more like what do I respond to. So it's so in the winter, anemones come in quite a lot, and I can't say what it is about them, but I get drawn to them when I see them and bring them in. So yeah, it's more about how I respond to what's around in the garden, perhaps, than choosing to, oh, I'm going to go look for this, I'm going to go and look for that. So my studio is quite a small, intense space that I work in, but I live right on the edge of the North Wessex Downs, and that's a really important part of my working life. So I go up onto the Downs regularly and walk a lot. And that's partly why I moved down here. When I came to look for an art school, I looked at Corsham, and I remember my mum drove me down. We drove through the Downs, and I was just blown away by there's a kind of bleakness to it, and a stillness to it, and there's a light to it, and it's really a really important part of my working life, to be able to go out and go up into that landscape